Hello, my name's Tom Bowles, KE5CW, and today I want to talk about customizing the grid in ControlDeck. If you're not familiar, ControlDeck delivers out-of-the-box one-touch hotkey controls for your Flex radio, turning any iPhone, iPad, or Android device into a full touch control panel. This will be a deep dive on customizing the grid layout that you see here and we'll use on a regular basis with the app. First, we'll go to the settings menu, and I want to cover a few settings here. This keep screen awake does just that. This is a default setting, it's on by default. And what it does is it keeps the screen on, even though you might have sleep settings or screen dim settings turned on for your mobile device. This will enable you to keep the app running right next to your keyboard without having to log back in or wake the screen. The fill screen buttons automatically fills the grid with buttons no matter how many buttons you have. This is also on by default. I can show you that I'll go ahead and turn this off, and then I'll show you the grid. You can see they've all shrunk to fit a default size, and then if I turn this back on, they will all expand to fill the grid. This also happens in the opposite direction. So if I were to turn on all the buttons, show all the buttons, they will shrink to all fit on the grid. And then if I were to turn it off now, they all assume a standard size, and now I can scroll to view all. So there's a lot of customization here and how you want to see the buttons, if you want to see a lot of them, or if you want to fill the grid. I prefer to keep this on because while I'm operating, I don't typically like to scroll on the control panel. There's also VFO control frequency and frequency enable or disable. You can show or hide the VFO. So if I turn this off, you can see the VFO is now disabled, and I'm maximizing my screen for button controls. If I want to turn this back on, of course I can show it again and it'll appear again, resizing all the buttons to fit. When you go to the buttons menu, you can also enable and disable all the buttons. I want to go back here and reset all the settings in the button order so that we start fresh on the settings. And I can enable or disable any of these buttons to fit my needs. So I don't really use SAM or NFM or DFM or RIDI that often. So I just turn those modes off. They're not shown in my setting. I also do not use MOX very often. So I turn these off. It keeps the noise down on the grid so that you're not searching for the buttons that you actually care about. You can turn off the ones that you don't normally use. Another way to maximize space is to collapse button groups into their own group or expand them into their individual buttons. So for instance, on the mode button group, I have this individual mode buttons enabled by default on tablets, but it's disabled by default on phones. And you'll see why here in a minute. And you'll see all the mode buttons that I have enabled are displayed on the screen individually. But if I go here and I turn off individual mode buttons and I go back, you'll see that they've all been collapsed into this one picker sheet. This is nice if you have limited real estate on your screen and you want to collapse all the buttons in a certain group so that you're not, filling up the whole screen. Also on the screen, you'll notice there's a convenient button search. So if, for instance, I want to add filters to my screen, I can do that. I can also maybe I want to check out the audio controls. So I can search for these major button groups as well. Or maybe I want to select a few global profiles. I can choose which ones I want to enable, and it's as easy as that. I can also show or hide macros that I've created. There will be another video that goes into more detail on macros, but for now, just know that when you slide left or right on macros, you present new options. So when I slide to the right, I can disable the split DX macro that I have created, or I could slide again and enable. So this shows and hides the button associated with this macro on the grid. We're going to go back to the grid, and now let's say I have the buttons selected that I want on the grid, but I want them in a different order. If I tap and hold on any of these buttons, it goes into rearrange mode. I can tap any of these buttons and drag them to the location that I prefer them. So I like all my audio controls here in the upper left, for instance, and just click done when it's set to how I like. A couple other settings I want to cover. One is when you go back to the settings menu at the bottom of the app menu, we have reset all settings and button order. If for some reason you completely mess up your button order and you want to start fresh, then you can select this button. Now this will not wipe away any settings with regards to macros or memories or filter presets. This only pertains to button visibility and button order on the grid. Additionally, if I go to the buttons menu and I scroll all the way to the bottom, there is a show all buttons. If you want a quick preview of what every button would look like on the grid, you can do that. Additionally, if I hide all buttons will be removed from the grid. This allows me to select only the buttons I care about. Finally, if I reset button order, all the buttons that I have available will be reset to match the order that they appear in the menu screen. Be sure to check out ControlDeck at controldeckapp.com or Google Play Store and Apple App Store. I hope this has been informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.